where this victimhood can come from. The origins of okay, here's another thing. No, here we go. This is another key word. This is a big one that they use all the time. Trauma. Trauma. Understand this. I'm going to contextualize trauma really quick. But if we look at the definition, or you've seen the definition, contextualize it to anything. Recontextualize. Where is trauma present? It has to be, it's an effect. It's an effect. Requires a relationship. So when I say relationship, that's one relating to another. A relationship, a contact relationship. So that's what, okay, I understand why that could be confusing if people aren't using my brain. Now that contact also needs to be, contextualized. Contact doesn't necessarily mean physical, it requires vicinity. Exposure. So I'll say exposure. That's better, okay? It's instant. It's an instant and more than likely irreversible. You can restore and recover from trauma, but that trauma will have always happened, right? It's like breaking a vase when your parents are gone or something. I've never done that. But like breaking a window, you can replace the window, you can glue the pieces back together, but the window would have always been broken at one point. Just because people don't know doesn't mean it wasn't. And that's a good thing about recovery, right? And how do you recover properly? How do you get back to a stronger state than you were before trauma, or the same state that you were before? At any point in time, all people suffer trauma. Every contact with something, every relationship is traumatic, right? You've got, and it's relative, right? But, and there's severities of trauma. I hope that is clear. I hope that's very clear. I hope that's not missed on what I'm saying. I'm not saying that traumas aren't different. I'm saying traumas are very different actually. But everything, any contact, any exposure is trauma. Now the specific connotations that have with exposure to these traumas and traumatization is usually negative, which is fair enough, right? All trauma is activated the same way in an instant. Requires exposure. So it's this arrowhead. It's that arrow coming to puncture this balloon, right? I mean, I don't know if you could tell about that. That don't really look like a balloon. That would be trauma. Even this, if this balloon was sentient and this wasn't, that could be a traumatic experience, like a life flash before your eyes, a near-death experience, right? Even right, that's why I'm saying it's relative. Non-physical things can be traumatic. Like this is what my issue is with society and the contextualization of trauma and how they want you to play the victim game. Suffering trauma creates a victim. Since we know that trauma can be anything, contact with anything, we're victimized at all moments. So who is our victimizer? What can we blame, right? When can we take responsibility? People, that's a word people don't like right now, is like nothing is my fault, everything is something, this is because of this, it's not because of me, something else, it's because of this, not me, right? It's not your fault. That is what's being said a lot today. Sometimes that's true. There are things you could have prevented that you were responsible for. Like when at a certain amount of age, a certain time of awareness and accountability that you have due to being able to make other decisions that you have made, which could have been in your interest or non-interest. So if you make good decisions and you make a bad one and something happens, that was an irresponsible thing. What did you do irresponsibly? If you're usually making bad decisions and something worse happens with the next bad decision, you have a cycle of bad decisions, and this was an outcome that was possible, but it just turned out worse this time. it doesn't justify if it was another human using their free will to make this happen against you. It just reconfines and restructures the narrative of the before the instance of trauma. So what happened before you got there, right? What mindset were you in there? What things were you doing? What is your accountability for the priors, right? Not blaming yourself, but it's knowing that experience, so the surroundings in that area, you know how to prevent it again, right? If it would ever happen, know how to make sure this doesn't happen again, which is also going to make you stronger and prepare you, and you'd be stronger than you were before. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. What people are now perpetuating is, what doesn't kill you makes you a victim, and because you're a victim, you are weak. But we want to be seen as strong, but we do not want to lose the favor that we receive from being a victim. So I'm going to stay weak, though I could be stronger, because I get help from being a victim. I get sympathy, I get empathy, I get attention. These are for the things that are true. I'm going to get into something shortly. I'm going to get into this all has been from something that is true. And if you all would like me to speak on this personally, that is something that has to be requested. That's not something I'm going to be putting out there publicly, because I don't need it to be boxed a certain way. But certainly ask me how I obtained this information. You can most certainly do that. And I actually encourage that. And consider the worst traumas you could ever think of. If you survive it, what's the potential? If you survive it and you have autonomy, that's sort of the gist here. Is because without autonomy, meaning there's no way for you to communicate anything at all, and there's no way for you to make decisions by yourself. That's absent of autonomy. So there's no way you can make a decision for yourself because there's no one that's able to communicate with you. That's a loss of autonomy. So before that, if there's any way you're able to make decisions, people that are willing to, in the worst case scenario of still able to communicate, if any sort of traumatic thing, if you're still able to communicate and someone's willing to communicate correctly with you, and you're able to make decisions and they're able to play out for you what you request, and you're still making those decisions and they're being made accurately to what you would do. Are you going to squander that time focusing on this thing? Like, imagine the worst trauma, that you're still in physical pain every day. Physical pain every day. Physically feels like you're suffering a different trauma every day with these nerves and things. When they have the opportunity to live life the greatest thing as possible, to not address this, not think about it, even though they're physically affected by it, if they had that opportunity, do you not think they would take it? In this society, I would say it'd probably be hard for them it would probably be hard for them to, but on a personal level, on a spiritual level, on a mindful level, if they realize the miraculousness of their life still and being alive from their severe trauma, then there would be no reason for them not to expand beyond the physical effects if they have that opportunity, or think about something else, talk about something else, progress, further themselves. So for the people that don't have a physical trauma, a trauma that is a physical currently limiting them, their autonomy physically, right? When you have a mentality that you are in control of your mental state, when you can give it up, you are one is born completely capable and control of their own mind and their body. You're making decisions. I've stated this. Every time you decide to listen to what someone says or what someone does, or think about your own past experiences and use those to influence your future, that influences your mental state, that is your choice to think about and then act upon. Your acts are your fault. Your thoughts are your fault. The things other people do that put themselves in your space is their fault. But your observation of that event is up to you. Your thoughts of that event is up to you. Your thoughts of its effect are up to you. Its physical effects, maybe not necessarily. Could be sometimes. You have a decision to make. Everything's shown because of the degrees of severity. When you plug it back in to the formula, trauma is the same. How do you recover? Okay, so we have these pieces that are the same. Because of the severity of trauma is different, we still know it plugs into that plate. It has this place here, and these are the additives. We need these things. But because of the severity, we need to adjust the time, the efforts, we need to increase those in order for restoration. And if those things are not provided, which you would have to provide for yourself, because traumatization, non-physical traumatization, or that it's after the instance of trauma, the thoughts of it are up to you. Your action that you do are up to you after that. All right. Let me state this as well here. Real trauma exists whether recognized or not. Let me repeat it again. Real trauma exists whether recognized or not. Trauma can exist without proof, without evidence, right? Because most trauma is unexpected, I would say. The things that happen that are there's more things out of your control that happen in the universe than there are in your control. So because of the things that are in your control, those are the things we should have sort of high expectations for a record of those things. But because more things exist that are out of our control, trauma exists whether recognized or not. When we suffer a trauma, we know it happened to us. When we stub our toe in the kitchen, yell, ah! No one's around to see it, but they hear the noise. They're coming down. It's like, what happened? Oh, I stubbed my toe, but your finger's bleeding. And you look at your finger. It's like, why is your finger bleeding? I just stubbed my toe. I don't know how this happened. This is a weird example, but it's going somewhere. Like, I stubbed my toe, and they come down. It's like, but your finger's cut. It's like, wait, what? And you don't know you stub your toe and you reach back and you accidentally sliced your hand. It's like, no, I stubbed my toe. And like that blood looks a lot more painful than a stubbed toe. We don't see your toe looks fine. Like you might already have big toes. Like, I know it's fine, but I really stubbed my toe. And but forget about my hand. My hand doesn't even hurt. And it's like, oh, now this hurts too. Thanks for telling me. It's like, I mean, that's a good thing that you know your finger's cut, but the pain that was caused was unseen. They'll see the things externally, right? The things that you can see externally, the things that leave an effect after the instant of trauma are able to be seen. The things that you experience with no one else there, if there's no external fact to it, it leaves something internal. You know it's there. Whether or not if someone chooses to acknowledge that and focus on it, it does not change that it happened. So, and if there's no way you can prove it happened, it doesn't change reality that it happened to you. It changes the effort you should place in trying to prove it happened and tending to the injury. If it's internal, soothe it. See how you can get rid of it, because you heard people aren't gonna believe. There's no way you can get them to believe you, because there's nothing that you can pull out to substantiate. It's like, unless it happens to them with the oven, right? But you don't want that. You don't want other people to experience this. Sometimes society makes it seem like they do. It's like, you can't talk about it because you don't know what it experienced. How about you? This happened to you. and then you'll know, right? Rather than, yes, this happened to me. This is how you avoid this happening to me, because this was the situation I was in. This is what happened. Let's try to figure out how to either capture before this happens again, fix this so it doesn't happen to someone else, right? Because it did happen to me. I know it can't prove it. We missed out on that one, unfortunately. But because this happened to me, this is how I would like to prevent it. Because I know I don't have proof, I'm going to make sure I'm going to do my work to prevent it from happening to other people in a justifiable way. So does that mean throwing the oven out? It means cutting the piece off that stubbed your toe, right? It means filing it down a little bit. It means warning other people that are in that vicinity, the environment, hey, if you can't fix the oven, it's like, hey, just a warning, this happened to me, but you can be careful around this, right? So this is the exact position I was in when this happened. When you're right there in this position, walking in that direction, and they're there, and that's there, that thing's going to stay there. So if you're going in this direction, I'd say open your eyes a little bit more in that situation, so you don't stub your toe, because people probably won't see it unless you damage more than I have, because no one saw me, right? No one saw my stub toe. It hurt, but it'll be on the inside. But my foot's good. I don't want you to possibly break your toe. I don't want you to possibly get your toe cut off, right? So just be safe around this thing. I'm not saying don't go near it, right? Because it could have been filed down, because I'm not trying to go near it right now, because I have no business. That was my hotel, but let me let you know about. So it's contextualizing all things, add all these different additives to this analogy, right? You do something reasonable to affect the way other people will interact with that same thing that victimized you. It's not a good example because the oven didn't move, but say it's like more like a falling tree in the rain, like hay or something. The different conditions that there are with something that is moving as well as you, something that is going to do what it does regardless of what you do, and you're going to do what you do and maybe be influenced by this thing. It wasn't the greatest analogy, but it was a simple one. But you can adjust it to, because this thing may not move, right? This thing may not change without you purposely trying to change it, right? Without something initiating that action. So an issue has to be known before it can be changed. That's something that's like, how much time are you willing to invest into trying to prove something happened without changing it happening to other people? That's something I hold personally true. Can I prove it? It's not that, okay, it's going to be really hard to prove. I don't care. If it's something I can prove, I will try my best to. Am I willing to put in the effort to prove it? Because without any evidence, unless I have evidence, I will not say something and purposely influence someone, think a particular way without knowing myself. If I figure something like, hey, think about this. What do you think about this? Maybe they are more willing to put in the effort to find. I would present it as an option rather than as this certainly did. Certainly, right? And still being willing to accept more information after that certainty, right? Because if it's something that can ever expand, if it's something, there's more to it that I don't know, I'm always open to information. That's just me. And I will compartmentalize and throw away the things that are not useful to me at the moment, but sometimes it can be retained for other people's use if it is deemed as, insignificant to me, but useful to someone else. Real trauma exists whether recognized or not. All right, I'm going to come back in just a moment